Сайн байцгаана уу хүнд үзэгчдээ. Өнөөдөр манай дефакто нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор профессор Мэттью Брок гэж хүн орж байна. За бидний аутизм гэж өвчний тухай эсвэл одоо байдлын тухай Монгол улсад энийг ялангуяа сургуулийн хүүхдүүд, сургуулийн насны хүүхдүүдээр ямар арга хэмжээ авж байгааг энэ хүний ажиглалтаар мэргэжлийн хүний нүдээр санал бодлын хуваалцахаар цуглаад байна.
Мэттью Брок, Охайо мужийн их сургуулийн боловсрол судлалын тэнхмийн профессор, Вандербилт их сургуулийн тусгай боловсролын доктор, Хойд Каролинагийн Чапел Хилл их сургуулийг боловсролын магистр, Индианаполисын их сургуулийг тусгай боловсрол болон бага боловсролын бакалавр зэрэгтэй тус төгсжээ. Охайо мужийн их сургуулийн боловсрол судлалын тэнхмийн туслах профессор, Хойд Каролинагийн Чапел Хилл их сургуулийн аутизмын хүрээний эмггийн мэргэжилт дэвшүүлэх үндэсний төвийн мэргэжилтэн, Америкийн нэгдсэн улсын инх тайвны корпусын тусгай боловсролын мэргэжилтэн, MSD Wayne Township тусгай боловсролын багшаар тус ажиллаж байжээ. Охайо мужийн их сургуулийн боловсрол судлалын тэнхмийн профессор, Охайо мужийн их сургуулийн насанжаар хөгжлийн хоорондын төвийн факультет, Охайо мужийн их сургуулийн бага насны хүүхэд хөгжлийн судалгаа, бодлогын Крейн төвийн судлалаар тус ажилладаг.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Matthew, please tell us about your mission. How long and what are you doing in Mongolia? Let's start from that.
Sure. I am a Fulbright specialist, which is a program of the U.S. government, and I've been invited to come here by the Autism Association of Mongolia. I am here for a total of 5 weeks. I'm about halfway through with my time as of now. And what the Autism Association has asked me to do is work with schools that are including students on the autism spectrum in regular schools through inclusion and help share strategies for how teachers can better support inclusion and the success of students with autism. And I'm actually not their first Fulbright specialist, so I'm only one part of their larger plan. So they've actually had a previous Fulbright specialist who focused on sharing, like, what is autism and what's the purpose of inclusion? And then my purpose is more practical as far as sharing practical strategies that teachers can implement now with their students.
So let's start again from the same standard question. What is autism?
Sure. Autism is diagnosed based on two characteristics. One is a deficit in social communication, so the ability to communicate and interact with other people. And the other is someone would need to either have repetitive behaviors or restricted interests. And that might look different for different people.
Restricted interest.
Yes. So some people with autism might be obsessed or really interested with a specific TV show or a specific celebrity, or in some cases it might be a useful obsession. Like there are people who work at my same university who have autism and are really focused on maybe a certain kind of science that they're obsessed with, and that's actually been useful for them to
performing
focus.
Better than regular people?
Yeah, well, there's a wide spectrum for autism, right? So there's some people with autism that also have intellectual disability, so have many more needs than most people. But there are also people with autism that are a regular intellectual capacity or above regular intellectual capacity. So there's a wide range, yes.
And autism, I mean, how old is this? Is it disease or is it a state of the mind? What is this?
So I would call it a developmental disability, and I would distinguish it from a disease because it's not something that you catch or that we fix. It's something that is part of who a person is for their entire life. And there are things that we can do to treat autism or educational interventions where we can teach skills and make it easier for that person. But we're not going to eliminate the autism. We're only going to improve their ability and capacity.
So if there is autism, it will be there.
Correct.
And only if we detect earlier, we can treat better.
That's right. The earlier that we can detect, the better, because it's the longer window of time to intervene and support.
Why is it happening?
That's a difficult question that I don't have a perfect answer for. So scientists are trying to figure that out right now. My field is more education than medicine to find the cause. I do know from my medical colleagues that a certain percentage of children with autism, they found random genetic mutations. So that's not necessarily helpful to know that as a cause, because that's not something that we can fix or prevent, because it's random genetics.
How often it happens?
In the United States, the numbers have been going up as our identification has gotten better. But now it's close to about 1 in 50.
1 in 50. Is there any other country close to that?
I don't know for certain. I know that the last time I compared national numbers, the U.S. was the highest. But that was only... I believe that's mostly because our detection, there's such an emphasis on detecting very young. And I think as other countries get detection that is the same, that they'll get similar numbers. I don't have any reason to think that the actual numbers are higher in the United States than anywhere else if we had the same detection.
Any hint or any information you have about Mongolia?
About prevalence?
Detention, etc.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm still learning here.
Okay.
So I've seen many children with autism, but that's who I've specifically have come to see. I don't have a sense of percentage of the overall population.
So you came here by the invitation of association.
Correct.
To discover what is the situation of their teaching in the regular schools.
Correct.
How are they?
Regular schools here there's some things that are similar to the United States and some things that are very different.
Okay.
The thing that was striking that's the most different is class size. So here I've seen classes that have 40 students, sometimes nearly 50 students. And within that class, a teacher is trying to also support a student with autism that's within. Easy. Which is very challenging. And to be honest, I have been amazed by your teachers and how hard they have worked to be successful with that, because that is much more difficult than what's asked of any American teacher.
I see. And how many schools you have been working?
10.
So far? 10.
10 schools.
10 ordinary schools?
Correct.
Around the city or in the center?
All around the city.
Okay. So you know different... society layers, schools.
Yes, very different at different schools. It's been interesting, yes.
Do you see big differences depending on the location, income, etc.?
Yes. And that probably is a similarity to the United States as far as different areas, different socioeconomic status. So maybe some children in some areas have more advantages than children in other areas.
You said about 40 to 50. How do they feel, and how do those kids with autism feel? How do the others who are studying together feel? Have you seen any observations?
I've actually been really encouraged by watching peers, so other students without disabilities in the class. And the majority of what I've seen from peers are very caring children who are actually really interested in what can they do to help the student with autism be part of the class. So what I've seen for the most part has been very positive and encouraging. That's very encouraging to me because a lot of my work is focused on how can we build relationships between students with autism and other students in the class, because they have trouble with communication and social skills, and the best way for them to learn those things is by interacting and learning from their peers.
And compared with the U.S., I understand in the U.S., also you have regular schools where these kids attending, and
yes.
And there are schools also the kids attending both. Regular school and the special school.
That's correct.
Right? Why is that? What depends on that?
Sure. So In the United States, the placement decision is made by a team. So that team includes the parents and includes a special education teacher at their neighborhood school and a representative of the educational agency at their neighborhood school. And they make that decision together. And the U.S. law gives a lot of power to parents. So if parents take a hold of that power and they understand their rights, they usually are the primary decision maker about what school their child is going to go to. And there's a wide spectrum of choices in the United States. So some children might be in a regular class most of the time. Other children might go to their same neighborhood school, but they might divide their time, spend some of it in a regular class, some of it in a special education class. That balance is decided by the parents in the school also. So some children might spend more of their time in regular ed, and some might spend more of their time in special ed. That balance changes. And there also are separate school options too. So some parents decide that they would prefer to send their child to a separate school.
Okay, say after graduation, the child with autism study together in others in the regular schools. When they come to job, etc., how much kind of differences would be?
Yeah, so
in terms of having
opportunities. Yeah. So we discussed earlier this idea of a wide spectrum, right? So there's a huge ability differences within the autism spectrum. So like I said, there's some people who, are brighter than I am, and there's some people who have really severe support needs. So the opportunities are different based on those things. I am proud to say that there are universities, like the university I work at, Ohio State University, that offers college programs for students with autism, even those that have more severe disability, to be able to have some training. There's also a lot of emphasis in the United States on transition planning. So before the child even finishes high school, sitting down with the student, with the family, and the teacher and thinking through, okay, what are we hoping for this student to do after they graduate, and how can we make a plan and get them ready for a job that they might be a good fit for. So all of those things are positive. At the same time, we have a lot of room for improvement in the United States with employment. So among all of the different developmental disabilities, the employment numbers for autism are some of the worst. So we have good ideas and we have good programs and we're working on it, but I think we still have a long way to go with supporting employment.
What kind of professional occupation they may have and in which they do perform better? If there's any classification of those jobs or rankings?
Sure. It totally depends because the spectrum is so wide. So there's some individuals that have normal intellectual capacity and very mild autism, and you could find them in almost any kind of job. Common kind of jobs that I know, I actually have friends with autism that work in those jobs. They work as academics at universities, maybe in information technology, IT, many different kinds of jobs.
Just any regular guy.
But individuals that have more significant disabilities might have to think how we can match their specific skill set to a job that they would be good at.
In that case,
sure,
they would have.
Sure. I don't have official statistics. I'll give examples of people I know.
Another example.
Sure. So I know someone who works at a department store, organizing and folding clothes, putting them on the racks. I know someone who works at a bank. So very individualized. I know someone who bags groceries at a grocery store, but really totally depends on that individual's abilities and needs.
You said that U.S. has a higher rate because earlier detention. And what a society can do, like Mongolia, right, can do that we make sure that we check every child at which age it should be obligatory. What kind of, our medical health policy for them makers?
Sure. I think the most successful tool in the U.S. has been universal screening when children come in for well visits at their doctor. So when children are about 2 years old, nearly every child in the U.S., that their parents are asked a series of questions that kind of screen the child. And that's not going to diagnose, but it's going to screen them. And they'll be able to tell the parent, like, hey, there's a chance that your child might have autism. We recommend further testing.
Screening is difficult. Do they need particular equipment, or how does? I mean, how we can help doctor to detect earlier?
Sure, it's just asking questions. So there's no special equipment needed. The doctor would just ask the questions, and if the parent said yes to enough questions, they say, okay, we should get you further testing.
So it is a question that comes to parents first.
Yes, the doctor's asking the parents the questions. Yes, yes.
Any other way to learn from a child himself or herself?
Oh, like signs of autism?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. So
2 years old.
Yes, yeah. So delayed language. So if the child is not speaking at all or speaking very little, that would be the kind of social communication part. And then there also is the other repetitive behavior or restricted interest part. So if the child only plays in a very rigid way, a very narrow way, like maybe they only line things up or like to play in a very certain way, a particular way, that might also be a sign that.
So then the parents may learn about that even before 2 years old.
Yes, it's possible. Yes.
What is the earliest possible way? I mean, you have been practicing a lot. So.
I'm not an expert on the earliest. I don't know any children in my own experience that have been diagnosed before 18 months, so a year and a half.
So, but your advice is, as soon as your child is at least 2 years old, go through this scanning.
Yeah, to screen and see, is my child at risk, and if they show any of the signs, get further testing.
If we detect that at that age, it's earlier to treat.
Yes.
How they would treat? It is medicine or it is...
No.
What is this?
We would call it behavioral interventions. So children that young, typical children at that same age are soaking up language, and they're learning how to speak and learning how to understand other people and how to interact. And if we don't catch autism that soon, sometimes they're missing out on learning all of those skills. So we have behavioral interventions that can teach those children how to some form of communication. Some children with autism will learn to speak with support. Not all children, though. They might learn to communicate in other ways. So if they're not able to speak, we might teach them to communicate by using pictures or by using a computer, but some form of communication so they can say how they feel and communicate their needs.
So it's better to learn earlier about the situation and to work with the brain, how it's functioning.
Yes, we learned there's like kind of a critical window for young children that if we catch it early, it really helps.
You are a professor in this field, working with this kind of kids and the learning. If there is best practices in the world where a nation works particularly well with this kind of problems.
Yes, there's actually a whole collection of practices. So my own work is to kind of do research on different practices, and then once we find enough evidence, we would call something evidence-based practice. They say we have enough science to say, yes, this actually works. And there's a whole collection of practices that we would say these are evidence-based practices. The ones that I'm the most focused on in schools are focused on inclusion in schools. But there are many other practices, and the practices that I'm using at schools probably would be a little bit different than what you would do, for a 2-year-old child, because at that age you're really focused on communication.
Observing the children here in Mongolia, there is any kind of conclusion, maybe a child, maybe detect earlier or later, or maybe they could do it earlier, this kind of observations. Would you share?
Yeah, talking to different parents, there's pretty big differences in when the autism has been detected. So I've talked to some parents who have gotten a diagnosis when their child is very young at 2. And just from them talking, they seem to be very thankful that they identified so young because they had more opportunities for intervention. I've also met parents who they didn't get a diagnosis until the child was in primary school. And many of them will say, "Oh, I wish I had gotten it sooner." So that's just anecdotal.
Those are Mongolian parents.
Correct. Yes. But that's not so different than the United States because it's the same. There's some parents who get a diagnosis much earlier, and there's still some parents who may not get a diagnosis until their child's in school.
Wow. So it is not only that child issue, but also it's whole social setting issue.
That's right.
And it goes to that family. Can parents, for example, blame each other or something? This kind of happens, right?
Yeah, it's difficult. And there's a whole kind of focus in my field to support parents and to teach them that, like...
So in that case, how society can avoid this kind of conflicts?
Yeah.
Where the parents think. I mean, this is a relatively... it's a young society in many senses, very traditional society, I would say, in that sense. Yeah. Parents, maybe parents of either of spouses, may blame the other side. Yeah. Maybe because this and that. And what happens in that situation? What is the best way of understanding the people that they have not done it on purpose?
Yeah. I mean, this has been a problem, especially in the past in the United States, because there's a number of myths about what causes autism. So it used to be that people believed that that moms that weren't as warm and caring, that maybe they had caused autism. We know that's not true. Or some people might think, oh, you let your child watch too much TV or look at a phone too much, that gave them autism. We know now that that's not true. So I think part of it is just teaching society that there's nothing that a parent did that directly caused the autism. It can happen to anyone. You can be the very best parent and you still have a child that has a diagnosis with autism. It has nothing to do with what the parent did. So I think part of it is education. That's still a problem in the United States too, because some people will blame, and that's not fair to the families. So I try really hard to try to send the message to all families that it's not your fault. Your child is going to have some challenges, but there's things that we can do to make it better.
Okay, then I'm asking a different way.
Okay.
Say siblings.
Okay.
One of them has autism.
Yes.
Then one of them, the not autism boy get married or girl get married. Then how probably that healthy first. Parents may have a child who will have autism. And then this boy part will be more blamed afterwards. Why? Because among siblings there was an autism child. Is there any study, is any correlations?
No. Because you're thinking the idea being that because you're more likely to have someone with autism because there was someone with autism in your family. This has been studied a lot, and they haven't found a strong connection to inheriting genes.
So that's why the parents have no ground to blame each other for this kind of reason.
That's right.
Okay. That's the first issue in the family. Second issue, now in Mongolia, we used to have special schools. We still have 4 or so, right?
Yes.
And probably they were getting the child which was not detected 2 years old. Maybe very late.
Right.
Rather very not good conditions.
Sure.
In that terms. And then have 4 schools.
Sure.
The society, does the society accept now that to have this all child, first to detect earlier, second have them studying in irregular schools? Is it the understanding here in the society, or in that sense, how much the things being evaluated here? Sure.
So you're asking how much society accepts the children with autism being in regular schools now? Yeah. I would say that it's a work in progress and things are getting better. So All I know is from talking to families and people at the Autism Association here. But my sense is that in the past, it was very difficult to get children with autism accepted to a regular school, that's getting easier.
Yes.
My sense is also that when children are included and a school sometimes will share with all of the families, like, hey, we have a child with autism in the school, this is what autism is, they're going to be a part of your class, that for the most part, other families and children have been very accepting. So I think that things are getting better, but my understanding is maybe there's still some work to do.
On the other side, in a regular school with the other children, would they need a particular different type of notebooks, texts, or writing, and that require particular knowledge and approach from a teacher?
Yeah, so totally depends on what their needs are along the spectrum. Mm-hmm. Some children would be fine with regular materials. Mm-hmm. Some children would benefit from very adapted materials that are quite different. But yes, teachers having knowledge of special strategies is very helpful. And that's a lot of what I've been doing here, is sharing, okay, I've watched your child in your class, I've learned what their needs are, and here's some strategies that you can do to meet their needs that are different.
Is it difficult to get the teacher adapted in that way?
The teachers that we're working with are all volunteers. So their school has said, yes, we want to partner with the Autism Association. So I think that it's going to be a challenge for them to use those strategies, and teach 40 other students will be a challenge. But I've been very impressed with how enthusiastic they are to give it a try.
So say any child found with autism, anywhere in Ulaanbaatar or around Mongolia, parents, can they bring just to a school? It's already 6 years old at least, but saying that it has autism, would you be accepting or not? Is there any legal regulations?
So my understanding is it's the law that child should be accepted. But my understanding is that doesn't happen all of the time. But more and more schools understand that, yes, they need to accept at the child's neighborhood school.
Yeah, and if there is any case, say, some parents would say, no, I don't want to have my child in this class where the children with autism is. Is there anything that happens?
I've never heard of that situation, so I don't know.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Well, what we talk is a reality.
That's right.
And we need to be more accepting, and we need to be more helping each other. And then we talk about not only this volunteer teacher, we need the teacher understanding all the situation and having certain accesses to that, say, mental readiness. Is it difficult? I mean, how universally to organize so that, in case if you have this and that, you need to be this and that. At least a notebook or so, kind of handbook for the teacher.
Yeah. So my understanding is currently the idea from the government is that teachers at the special school are supposed to support and advise teachers at the regular schools. So when they have a student and they're not sure how to best support them, they could talk to the special education teacher.
So there's a
there.
connection between teachers of those who has experience and to teach those who needs that experience.
That's the idea, yes.
Is the mechanism is made here, or it is just a
beginning
job?
Just beginning.
Yeah. Would be good if there is this kind of system is existing, right?
Yes.
If by any chance that particular school teacher get that child, she should approach either the association or the education, some help facility.
I agree, yes.
Okay, in that sense, Mongolia is, how much Mongolia is doing in that? Is there any progress in that sense?
I think that that system is just starting. So I think there's exciting early progress, but we'll have to see, how things go.
What is that association about?
The association provides some amazing resources both to families and to schools. To give you some examples, they offer free training in PECS, or Picture Exchange Communication System. That's an intervention to teach communication skills to children on the autism spectrum.
So if a young parents discover, as soon as they discover that maybe or might be something similar to that direction, they can approach that association and have this to learn, right? How to make sure that things go in the right way.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Well, it is much better what we talk now than, to my best knowledge, 10 years ago.
Sure.
So I've been raising the issue as well with other colleagues I knew, and also we were supporting people who was going to the Paralympics in this regard. So, and there are many, society goes better in the living standards coming up.
Yes.
Society is developing, then I think the society will be more ready to take care of, in general, to care of this kind of situation.
Agreed.
All right, what you would tell the parents who has children with autism in Mongolia? What you would tell them?
Sure.
As a professor who has been working with this in this situation and mostly working with in the field of education, right?
Sure. I would say that being a parent of a child with autism is going to be a very different experience for you, but that I'm excited by the possibilities that are in Mongolia now. I'm especially excited by the movement towards inclusion. I think there's going to be new opportunities for you to have your child included in regular schools and learn alongside children who don't have disabilities. I would strongly encourage you to reach out, if you haven't already, to the Autism Association of Mongolia, both for resources and to kind of network. I think it's really helpful for parents to be able to talk to other parents who are in the same situation as them and have real conversations about what is it like, especially talking to parents who maybe their child is a little bit older, so you know what can I look forward to in the future.
Oh, great. By the way, why you have selected this field of your profession?
Sure. My original reason for getting into this field is I have a sister who has disability, and also when I got married, my wife also has a sister who has autism, so we have multiple members of my own family. So they're my inspiration to try to make things better for all people with disabilities.
Great. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
За, хүн төлөвчтэй өнөөдөр энэ хүүхдийн аутизмын тухай, тэр хүүхдийг ер нь ердийн сургуульд оруулж байгаа. Тэрэн дээр яаж ажиллах вэ? Ямар хуур амьсгал байх вэ? Яавал бид нар бие биендээ илүү халамжтай хайртай амьдрах вэ гэж. Энэ сэдвээр яг энэгээр ажиллаж байгаа профессор, доктор Охайогоос ирсэн ноён Мэттью Брок гэж хүнтэй ярьлаа. Баярлалаа.